Good morning. So here's what I'm thinking about. Anything we're noticing as a pattern that comes up repeatedly is something to look at for ourselves. Is it a limitation? Is it helping us? Why is it there? Kind of stuff. Because a lot of times we've developed a coping mechanism, or it is built into our programming to suppress or deny some sort of something, right? So as it arises, we might easily push it away or bypass it or think that it's nothing or have something in place that we do instead to deter us. And maybe we think, great, I've dealt with that thing. That's fine. Like that's not a big deal, a big burden in my life or anything, right? But in actuality, that thing that we are repeatedly having resurface is something that's trying to get our attention, and we know that because it's in a pattern. If it keeps returning, it's definitely building up its power to get our attention. So even though we have effective coping mechanisms that give us relief from a certain whatever, it's important for us to still be open to looking at whatever comes to us in a pattern of discomfort, The other thing I want to say is, the other day, what day was this? November 27th, apparently. I wrote it in my journal, and I just thought last night I got the prompt to share this thought, but I didn't want to record anymore last night. So here I am today doing it. I hope it's not too late for anyone. But I wanted to kind of gather my thoughts and sit on it and see if it was still pressing this morning. And yeah, it is. So the thought that I'm sharing was my own realization about how thankful I am for still having things that have not worked out, like that I've not worked through yet, so that I know my new experiments work or not. Because I'm working on different ways to kind of lay a foundation. Like, because I've discovered a lot of ways where the program can be disempowering. And my programming in particular was disempowering, and I've worked to dissect it. And what I'm now doing is working it from different angles. And so I was just thinking, wow, what a wonderful thing that I still have things to work through, so that when I develop a new tool or want to try out a new method, that I can try it out as an experiment, like I always do. That's how I try things out, as an experiment, and and know whether it works or not, right? And then from there, of course, I take it to other people and figure out if it works for them too. And that's basically how I've done it with all the tools that I present. I try them out on myself, and in a lot of cases, I then try them out on people who are willing around me. That's been really nice because I've always had someone willing to try it out around me. And I think the basic message that I'm trying to share is how wonderful it is that we still have stuff to work through. And a movie that I watched the other day gave me even a different perspective on it, which is this particular movie. Wow, it's like I'm speaking like dyslexically, right? Interesting. So, what was that movie called? Boy, I wish I remembered what the movie was called, but basically in the movie, it was saying, like, once you work through all your stuff, then you go to heaven. And so if that were the case, which I don't actually look at it exactly that way, and I'll explain my way of viewing it in a moment, but if that were the case, then we want to be always working on something. We want to have room to grow, unless we want to be done here, right? And I know I plan to be here for a while longer. So I'm glad for having more things to learn and grow through. And the way I look at heaven is that heaven would be living without the restrictions of limitation and the pain and suffering, basically. And that is something that's available to us. So, although pain is a part of life, like suffering is optional. I think that quote by Tony Robbins is really beautiful and perfect. So I continuously share it ever since I heard it, because it's just true. So even a temporary pain could exist in heaven, in my opinion, because these pains are the contrast that we need. And maybe in heaven you can look at it like, well, there's no this contrast isn't needed to appreciate. Yeah, that's completely possible too. So maybe it has pain, maybe it doesn't have pain, but what it does have is, I believe that we can get pretty darn close to living that way while we are incarnated in this lifetime in these bodies. And I'm glad to try, even if it's not achievable, because it's a worthy goal to me. All right, so I've decided to put my old oracle in this jar for safekeeping, just in case my new oracle doesn't sit well with me. I don't know what I'll do with this, but that's where it's at right now. And I'm going to grab my new oracle cards and throw a few out on the board to see. Let's give us a message of the day. Although this would be pertinent for you whenever you find it. I'm pulling this on 12/5/2022 at 9:12 a.m. Beer. Interesting. 8. Oh, interesting. Okay. So these are asteroids. That's what those little numbers are next to them. They're asteroid number. But they're also energy, right? And beer is, yes, the consumption of alcohol. And 8 is another word for the underworld. So maybe there is some sort of thing that you may use alcohol to escape, or you have a judgment against alcohol that you're harboring in your subconscious that is being brought to your attention. Could be either way. Anubis is the one who measures the hearts to be light as a feather. So, say there was something weighing on your heart and you weren't paying attention to it, and every time it got louder, you would just drown it out with alcohol. When you know that your heart isn't light as a feather, you know? So, it's maybe just calling you out on that. Let's see. I'm going to do these two and then I'll clarify. We got love and then content. I want to say that this is just saying, like, if you just love those parts of yourself instead, you could be content again. Now, maybe someone in your life has given you the impression that these things are not lovable. These things are worthy of judgment. These things are despicable. These things are unforgivable, you know. But it doesn't make it true just because someone else thought it, or someone else tried to share that belief that they had with you. Because we have the capacity to love ourselves unconditionally. And when we love ourselves unconditionally, we will love others unconditionally as well, including the people who tried to limit us by sharing their fear viruses. But our main concern is not them, punishing them, or setting them right. It's caretaking ourselves. It's our responsibility to do so, especially now as adults. There unfortunately are some children who are needing to do this as well for themselves, just because they're in a position that their adults are not able. Excuse me. So let me ask, why is beer here? Why is beer here? I'm just going to take a minute to shuffle a little bit. I'm actually going to shake the box. are you using beer to go into an altered state? And is that state preferable to the one that you're in? And what do you know about yourself when you're in that state that you don't know when you're not in that state? I don't know why so many came out, but I'm going to look at them. Moon, so it's not clear. This is a dark demon. Okay, all right, I gotcha. All right. So another issue that can arise when we consume alcohol is that we kind of like do it from a place of fear or depression or lack, right? To cope. And we're doing that from a disempowered place. Like we don't feel we have the power to rule our emotional body or caretake our emotional body, so we suppress or deny it. And just the act of doing that, of deciding to operate in that manner, makes us weak to outside forces because we've said that we don't have the power. And we're giving our power to alcohol, which in turn gives other outside forces an opening, right? It compromises the integrity of your field, okay? And you could even continue to compromise your integrity while you're in the state of inebriation. Oh, I realize these aren't on screen, so I'm going to put them over here. Probably help if I got my cocoa out of the way, huh? Alright, I will. I shall do it. Let's get serious about this little reading because it sounds like it's getting serious, okay? So far, in asking about beer, why is it here? I giggled because of the rhyming. We're saying, like, I think it's being brought to your attention that you're opening yourself to outside forces which will influence you very negatively and which will make you feel further disempowered, which will weigh on you heavily, and which will maybe act through you in ways that you will not prefer, but that you will, learn about yourself and learn what you do and don't want. But like we were just talking about heaven on earth, which is interesting, and it's like, no, this is opening yourself to the hell on earth, which hell on earth is also a thing. It's absolutely possible to live in a hellish state on earth, in suffering, feeling disempowered, giving our power away to others, and allowing ourselves to be affected negatively. This can also happen if we're putting out negativity towards others. It's going to be what we experience in our lives because we're in a feedback loop of whatever it is we're putting out. So this alcohol that is involved is contributing to and exacerbating a condition where you're getting further and further away from the feeling of love, that you may actually lie to yourself and say that you're content and say that you feel love when you're on this alcohol, but like that isn't what love is. Okay? I get that because I remember being in the states of inebriation and drug-induced highs and things like that. And you feel, yay, you feel happy, you feel free, right? You feel, unbothered by a lot of things that used to be bothersome. So you might think, oh, this is love, right? Like, no, actually. I can tell you by comparison from where I am now and where I was when I was under the influences, that was not love. Okay, that was fear, that was lack, and that was a veneer. That was there was no flourishing or flow or beautiful like synchronicities that open you up to the magic. The stuff that was happening there was like lust maybe, right? Gluttony, like overindulgence. What are some of the other, like some anger and wrath could happen, right? Like you lash out at somebody who pokes you in the wrong way because your inhibitions are low. Or any of those 7 sins or whatever, those are the hell realm. Okay, that is what it is. And we use our consciousness, our Our own choice is what it takes to get out of that. Okay? And alcohol is definitely a inhibitor to that process, because it's an inhibitor to our free will. And some people say, no, I'm more free when I'm on alcohol. I don't feel inhibited. You're more free to act within the lower realms. You're more free to be controlled by some outside force that's influencing you, that's putting thoughts in your head, that's poking you in a certain way, that's squeezing on you in a particular way, you know? Okay, so then we've got sloth, and maybe you're actually experiencing a slowdown of your life, right? Your life force is kind of being drained to this other kind of, in this other way, so that you're not being able to put yourself forward in your plans and your goals. And you know, that doesn't always happen with people who indulge in alcohol. We sometimes see this called functioning alcoholics, where we see them very successful in their business and yet still consuming alcohol to their own detriment. And I would say that maybe you've been in that state before, but that's not the state that you're in now, if this message is for you. Full moon indicates that this might be coming to an end, and maybe you're being helped to understand it more and look at it from a different view and reflect on this information that I'm sharing from this perspective that I have, in order to help close out this cycle. And maybe you're being slowed down so that you can do so with little damage, and so that you have the time to kind of look at all the factors. Okay, so what's coming up is different ways to feel about this particular topic. As I say some of these things, some of them are like going to rub you a little bit wrong, or feel a little bit like too pokey or too called out. And so I encourage you to first, please, stick it out, and let's see where this comes around to. And, of course, this is all up to you, how you take the information. And it is just information to reflect on. There's no judgment. But somehow the beer situation is here so that you can learn faith. So maybe there have been times where you drove drunk and you could have died, but you didn't. And it showed you that something else is here looking out for you, that you have something else to complete and do in this life. And you're being kept alive. You're being saved when you need it, despite the recklessness that you are indulging in this pattern. So you can speak things into existence. It really matters what your intentions are. And I think your beer is also, here so that you could know the difference between what joy is and what enjoying is. Interesting. Where do I want to put this? I guess we'll go here. Okay. Yeah, the difference between enjoy and joy. Joy is a state that you don't need something outside of yourself. You're just, in presence in the moment, having joy. Enjoy. I never thought about this before, so that just came out of my mouth, and it's something I'll have to contemplate deeper as well. Okay, now I want to ask about let's just ask about enjoy. Why is enjoy here? Why is enjoy here coming out as an explanation of why beer is here? Maybe you have a program that says, I need this to enjoy. Oh. Does beer serve, does alcohol or the consumption of alcohol or any substances as such serve as the scenario in your life where you're reliving unrequited love. Okay, so unrequited love, Clytia is blind desire and unrequited love. And that's what it's saying is playing out here. So unrequited love is like basically you love something or someone and it doesn't love you back. And I feel like definitely beer could be one of those things, right? You love it, but it doesn't love you back. And replace beer with whatever, it is that you might be utilizing in this manner if this reading is for you. I certainly don't think this is, a reading for the general public. I'm just going with what comes out and what's important to convey at this time. So there's something here where this unrequited love situation is manifesting in your actions. Where I feel like it's a little Jenga tower thing, right? Because it's like you have some semblance of control over whether or not you consume beer and whether or not you let it not love you back. But like your unrequited love situation is playing out here. Can you think of another time where there was unrequited love? Perhaps with your mother. We have Moon here. Mother did not return the interest that you shared with her in something about yourself, in an emotion, in an experience. Something you wanted to share with her was not important to her. It hurt. Maybe later in life you fell in love with somebody and then found out they were using you. It hurt. This energy is repeating in your life. And if you might even also be playing it out with somebody, right? Where somebody that you're not completely in love with somebody, but you're just content. And when I say in love with somebody, I mean like, meant to be with this person to grow with them. Maybe you're settling for a situation. We'll look into this further in a moment, but maybe you're settling for a situation because it's another place where you're living out this Clytia, which is imprinted on your psyche, this unrequited love situation. And you've maybe started to just use it in your benefit, where you just kind of control the situation by saying like, well, I won't let myself be hurt, so I'll indulge in this alcohol and I'll have this self-sabotage thing going on. But it's in a situation where, I can take a break for a day if I need to. And so you have like this idea of having control over it, right? Or if you indulge in a relationship, invest in a relationship where you know that this is not a deep connection, and you feel kind of safer in it because you're the one not requiting the love. You know what I mean? All right. So this is asking you to deep dive into what the enjoyment is that you're getting out of the beer situation. Listen to any fears that are coming up and look at your expression. This is like your inner child's expression, your expression of romance, and your self-expression, like where you shine your light in the world. Okay? Look at all those things in correlation to the consumption of this alcohol and the enjoyment that you get from it. Okay. Wow, this is very interesting. I didn't expect this morning. I'm honored to be able to convey this message. And remember, it's just information to reflect on and meant to be helpful. So, maybe it's coming through in a very abstract way for your situation, but just take what resonates as true for you, what hits you in that place where you're like, oh. All right, now I asked I asked for more information about this love and content, and we got forgiveness. So there's a situation from the past that needs to be forgiven. And if it was a situation like I described with Mother, then, there's going to have to be an honoring of how you felt. Like if you go to Mom as a child and say, Mom, this, and this happened, and I felt this way. And Mom's like, oh, suck it up. Or, I don't have time for that right now. Oh, that's not important. But, like, it was important enough to you to go to Mom, right? Like, you were interested in having some comfort or reassurance or acknowledgement of your emotional body. You weren't trained to do that for yourself. Obviously, if mom's habit, and it may not have been her habit, it could have been a one-time experience, it could have been her habit, it could have been someone else. But like if mom doesn't act as though that's important, that makes you feel a certain way as a child. Okay, and now that feeling is scary because mom's not going to comfort it, and you didn't have the skills to comfort yourself, or you would have already. So you suppress and deny that feeling, and then later on in life it turns into, I'm drinking alcohol to suppress and deny that feeling that I have still yet to process through, because it's scary and it's very uncomfortable, especially as a child when you want your mom's approval. You want mom to be happy with who you are and how you are, especially if that's the only time you're going to get her good attention. Maybe mom's only paying attention when you accomplish something, so other things go by the wayside and you start focusing on accomplishments. And you develop a coping mechanism that makes you want to achieve a lot but deny your emotional state. And so these are the things that we're looking at, is where did this originate, and then like honoring how you feel first, and after that, then you can start to look at what mom might have been going through. So this is usually something that's passed down. So mom probably experienced the same thing with her parental units. And then once you understand that, maybe you can offer this forgiveness and neutralize this energy between you that has been perpetuating on in your life. Say it originates or then perpetuated, or further traumatic experience happened when you fell in love with somebody who turned out to be a bad investment for you because they were just leading you on. They were just making you think that they were in love with you, but they weren't. And when you found out, it was devastating and heartbreaking, but you still had to carry on. You still had to go along with accomplishing things and keeping your life together and maintaining your level of participation in society, right? So you suppressed and denied some heartbreak, some real feelings of betrayal and hurt and pain and lack, and a lack of self-love, really, because in those moments, had somebody broken your heart that way and you loved yourself through it, you would have eventually gotten through that heartbreak and then moved on from it. But instead, the coping mechanism here, which may have been carried through from childhood, was to suppress and deny in some way, and then cope by, putting focus elsewhere, and then eventually letting that manifest in a consumption of alcohol to avoid the flood of those feelings, which you didn't feel prepared to process through, but are prepared to process through at this time. And it is time. So there would be a need to process through your own feelings on what that heartbreak meant for you and be present with. And then once you do that, perhaps then you can forgive the other party and then neutralize what happened. Maybe you start to see your part in it, or how you allowed it for yourself, or where you could take responsibility after you honor how you feel. Honoring how you feel has to be first, and if you're not someone who is in the habit of honoring how you feel because that's how you were trained, then this is foreign. I get it. And I can only share with you my method of doing so. So maybe for you it's not first. Maybe you have to lay a foundation in your mind, a safe space, in order for you to process the emotions. But the emotion is going to have to be processed in order for you to healthfully move through this, because the emotional body is where it's lodged. It's absolutely lodged in the emotional body here. And that's why it's coming up, and that's why it hasn't been alleviated yet, because the coping mechanism bypassed that. Okay. All right, I want to say that I honor you. Thank you for being here. This was probably an especially difficult message to hear. If it's meant for you, then you'll know. And I don't know that you're someone who would be in the habit of reaching out for help, but there is help out there, and please don't hesitate. to reach out if you do need someone to hold space for you or be with you or help reflect back to you what is needed here or what step you're on, ask you the right questions about it. Okay, so just take what's helpful. It's meant to be helpful, and it's just information to reflect on. And thank you for participating. I'll move these up just because you never saw them, and then I'll let you go. So that's all the cards that were there for that reading. Okay, bye now.